Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to discuss about the debilitating impact of COVID-19 on young minds. I extend my heartiest welcome to our esteemed panelists, Mr. Augustine Valiet, Founder Director, Asian Center for Entertainment Education and former Communication Specialist, UNICEF, Ms. Sangeeta R. Rajesh, Communications Consultant, the World Bank, India, and Dr. Pragyan Dangwal, Faculty, Amity Institute of Behavior and Allied Sciences, Amity University, Lucknow campus. I would like to invite Professor Dr. Sanjay Mohan Jori, sir, Director, Amity School of Communication, Lucknow, to make a welcome address.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Sunil Dhaneshwar, Chief of Field Office, UNICEF, Uttar Pradesh, Ms. Ruth L. Liano, our three panelists, Mr. Augustine Valiet, or as I call him, my dear Augie, Ms. Sangeeta Rajesh, connecting with her after so many years, and our very own Dr. Pragyan Dangwal. My special thanks to UNICEF officials present here, in particular Ms. Gitali Trivedi, Communication Specialist, and Mr. Salman, for giving us this opportunity to work towards UNICEF goals and sensitizing students of journalism and mass communication of my institute. Amity believes in nurturing talent and make young minds think differently. And I'm sure such activities which we have engaged in now will enhance their understanding and engage themselves towards the betterment of society. By engaging in today's activity, ESCO team led by Dr. Arina Mirza, our senior faculty, and duly supported by Ms. Arpita Singh, Soman Bhattacharya, Ms. Sonia Singh. We have worked hard on the topic of today's discussion and hope we achieve desired outcome. I'm indeed thankful to Pro Vice Chancellor Sir and Ms. Ruth for having agreed to spare their time and bless the students on this first workshop. Thank you very much and welcome to you again. The only one thing which I would like to share here, that we have brought in a student, Ms. Sanjana Saxena and Ms. Sonia Singh on behalf of the Amity School of Communication to moderate and be part of this activity, because they are the young minds and they have been together and working towards this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Jori, sir, for your kind words. I now request Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Sunil Dhaneshwar, sir, to give us his blessings for the panel discussion.
Good afternoon and a very hearty welcome to the two officials from UNICEF, Ms. Gitali ji and Augustine ji, Professor Jori, Director ESCO,
and our Chief Ruth Liano,
and all those who are present for this very important first of its kind in Amity campus, where UNICEF has joined with us. And the topic of discussion today is very, very important. We have seen people suffering from COVID, whatever are their mental state, physical state, all these things we have seen. So it is very appropriate and right time that we have a panel discussion on the issue, though it is universal, but focusing this particular seminar on the young minds is appropriate, since we are a university where we have all the young people in the campus, though right now there are no people in the campus, but hopefully from 7th, when we reopen the campus, we will be seeing postgraduate and our existing senior students first, and subsequently our first year students will be joining from 20th. Speaking of COVID, there is no need for me to elaborate upon what COVID was, COVID is, and what COVID is likely to be there. But yes, the effect on the mental health is very, very significant. Loss of parents, loss of relatives, loss of close friends, all these things have impacted. We have, Amity University has kept aside 50 crore rupees to support all those our students who have lost their parents, who were the paying parents for the student for their fees. And the university has taken responsibility that for their remaining entire period of studies, the university will pay their fees and they did not have to pay any single rupee for their fees. So these kind of activities and initiatives on part of the university and on part of the corporate houses would definitely support the students. But how far their mental health will be improved or can be improved, we have a very good panel of experts, and I hope that the panel discussion will be very, very useful for those who are attending. I once again thank Gitali ji and Augustine ji for associating themselves with Amity University, and once again welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening words. An essential measure of prevention from COVID-19 is social distancing. Although global COVID-19 trends suggest that youngsters are less likely to be infected by the virus as compared to adults, the impact of COVID-19 on the young minds goes beyond health issues. I invite Ms. Ruth L. Lieno, Chief of Field Office, UNICEF Uttar Pradesh, for her introductory remark on the topic.
Thank you, Sonia. Respected Professor Sunil Janeshwar, Pro Vice Chancellor, Amity University, Lucknow, Professor Sanjay Mohan Jori, Director, Amity School of Communication, esteemed panelists, Mr. Agustin Belayat, Ms. Sangeeta Rajesh, and Dr. Pragyan Dangwal, and dear students of journalism and communication. It is a pleasure to be part of this very interesting, innovative partnership where we exchange ideas with a group of talented young people who will be the reporters, editors, and communications of tomorrow. These are your formative years in the profession and therefore the best time for you to understand how big newsmaking events affect children and young people and why it is important to consider their needs when probing for any solutions. This is true of any subject: politics, economy, crime, natural calamities, public health crisis, and climate change. Every significant event or news has an impact on the lives of children and young people. And being aware of this impact allows us to create well-rounded, powerful, and impactful stories. The ongoing pandemic presents us with many examples. School closures due to COVID-19 have interrupted the learning process for millions of children, depriving them of their studies and the company of their peers. For children with disabilities and families without digital access, the road back to education has become especially challenging. Children have also had to suffer the trauma of watching their caregivers fall sick and pass away due to COVID-19. Others have become more vulnerable to abuse, child labor, and child marriage. Children's uncertainties, increased vulnerabilities, and concerns are an important aspect of the pandemic's impact. As students of journalism and communication, it is important that we empathize with the issues faced by children to broaden our perspective and look for answers. There are so many creative ways, and you know that well, to tell our stories today, from short videos to podcasts to graphics, in addition to the traditional photographs and write-ups. there is a wealth of formats to choose from. At the same time, I'd like to quote, in the context of communication, I'd like to quote one of the communication theorists by saying about the context of communication. And in my view, this is very critical as we move forward, content management, as we move forward the issues of and around children. And I quote, because contexts are built from interaction, no single context is ever sufficient to explain the communication process. Your communication may be largely affected by your sense of self, the messages of others, the conversations you are having at the moment, your relationships, the groups, the organizations, or the media. But in the end, we are all part of a large social and cultural milieu that affects and is affected by all the others. So where do we begin? In my view, we really need to recognize the importance of interaction with and among various groups. I have no doubt that those of you present today are skilled communicators brimming with fresh ideas. As we embark on this journey, I urge you to use these skills and knowledge to strengthen the voices of children as well as young people like yourselves. I look forward to a great discussion and wish you all the very best. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts with us and touching
Sonia,
on the
can you give me 30 seconds?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'm very sorry that I missed welcoming Ms. Ruth. Thank you very much, Ms. Ruth, for joining Amity University in this endeavor and collaborating with us in this particular activity as well as the two forthcoming activities with you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts with us and touching on the key issues about COVID-19.
The grief and loss caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has been overwhelming. According to statistics shared by UNICEF in March 2021, 1 in 7 youngsters were made to stay at home for the most of 2020, putting their mental health and well-being at risk due to isolation. I now welcome our first panelist, Dr. Pragyan Dangwal, clinical psychologist and faculty at Amity Institute of Behavioral and Allied Sciences. Can we please have the AV?
Dr. Pragyan Dangwal, who has spent 23 years as a top-notch psychologist, has been an advisory committee member and dyslexia master trainer of Divyangjan Sashastikaran Vibhag, Government of Uttar Pradesh. She is Assistant Vice President of UP Chapter of National Association of Palliative Care for Ayush and Integrative Medicine and member of Ethical Committee for Research, Cancer Aid Society. Dr. Dangwal is also the State Journal Secretary of Bharati Counseling Psychology Association. She is reviewer and editor of several prestigious national and international research journals and member of acclaimed psychology associations. Her areas of interest are adolescents, health, social and counseling psychology. She has done individual and organizational profiling and training for HAL, Army Medical Corps, Divyangjan Sashastikaran Vibhag, Government of Uttar Pradesh, Bankage, Franklin Institute of Air Hostess Training, LMRC, UP Prison, NIPSET, Aditya Birla Group, Power Grid Corporation of India, and Jaipuria Institute of Management Studies. Dr. Dangwal is presently working as faculty at Amity University, Lucknow campus. With a multidisciplinary approach, she aspires to build a community of professionals and practices which help people thrive with or without mental health issues. Dr. Pragyan Dangwal, we welcome you.
Pragyan ma'am, I request you to join the panel and share your thoughts on the wide-ranging impact of COVID-19.
Thank you so much, Sanjana. And thank you so much, Amity Institute of Communication, for this wonderful AV on me. And it made me a bit nostalgic. And I welcome on board Ms. Ruth, Professor Sanjay Mohan Jori, Professor Sunil Dhaneshwar, our panelist, Dr. Augustine Vellier, who has been associated with us also at IBAS. And it's been after a long time that I'm seeing you, sir. Thank you, everybody. And on the very onset, I would like to congratulate Professor Jori and ASCO for coming up with this panel discussion. Being a mental health expert, it always gives me great pleasure when people lay emphasis on mental health, and especially during this time where all over the world, the globe is concerned about the mental condition of people, especially children and the young ones. The pandemic really created a hurricane in our life. It made our life go all topsy-turvy. It is a little bit stabilized, but the uncertainty still continues. And in this condition, what do we do? Do we assess the impacts on the population that it has created? Do we go ahead and work on the treatment and how to do that also? So there are still many questions which are unanswered, many answers which we also seek more clarity for. But when it comes to the pandemic, it has had a global effect on our health, both mental and physical health, apart from all the other aspects of our life. And it has also brought about this added duality in our life. So at one side, we have the statistics which tell us about the colossal effects, largely the ill effects which have been brought about due to the pandemic. And then there are also the subjective experiences which we cannot negate. There are also positive experiences which we need to look at. And then there is the invisible and the visible which has been there, the known and the unknown which has been there, the challenges with people who were already emotionally and mentally challenged versus the general population. So what do we look at? What do we focus on? And to tell you the truth, all these are very important. All this is very true. We cannot negate one. But yes, we do need to realize that it is both to be looked at the individual level and at the community level. We have to work at both the levels. We realize why so much of importance is being given to the mental health concerns of people. Why focus on this? Because you see, the mental status of the people are affecting each and every other aspect of their life. With the pandemic, where there is hopelessness, how do we convert it into hopelessness? How do we convert it from a dismal to a situation where things look a little bit brighter for many? Now, each and every household has been affected. There is nobody who has gone unaffected. When we talk about crisis, loss, and isolation, each and every individual has been affected. And that is why this becomes so important. More than the economic factors, more than the social, it becomes a mental health concern, because in this situation, if we are feeling isolated, if we feel that there is no tomorrow, if we have that impending sense of loss which we cannot overcome, then there is no tomorrow for us. And can we live in a state like that? No, we cannot. That is why at the government, non-government, everybody has given their efforts and have concentrated on how to address this issue, identify, assess the impact, and get the treatment opportunities which are there, and starting with awareness. So there were many help platforms which were set up. There were many tele-counseling which happened. They all helped. But in the end, when it comes to the individual, how many efforts are we taking? What are we doing for the mental health concerns of ourselves and others? See, when we talk about loss, it is not loss of a dear one in the family. It is not the loss of money. It is not the loss of a business. It is those very small losses which have happened in our life when it comes to about going and attending a class or going and working at my place. I no longer have my workspace to work. So that was a loss. Not being able to go and talk to people, that was also a loss. Now, this is the invisible loss, the invisible crisis that I'm talking about. So when we said visible and invisible, so there were many things which are still invisible to us. They have not come in our awareness, and probably they are the ones which are causing to an increase in the mental health issues or our minds not working. And then there's another point which I would like to bring about, that is the mind, body, and the soul connects, where medicines don't work, where the physical support does not work, where other things don't work for us and we are at a loss and isolated, then it is our mental strength, our belief in ourselves, and the belief for a brighter future that will work. So you young people need to work first and foremost on that, because maybe the rest of the things are not in our hands, but this is very much in our hands, and that is where we need to work. Not many strategies or not many techniques have been talked about, but again, I would like to, I relate more to and would like to promote the simple things that we can do. We all talked about compassion, we all talked about gratitude and resilience. These are the times where we need to notch up on these skills and consciously practice them. Because if there's nothing else in our hands, this is what we have. We have the support of people around us, people who are sailing in the same boats, whether it is loss, whether it is crisis, whether it is the trauma that has been caused because of this pandemic. And for the young and for the children, it is more. Why so more? And why are they more susceptible? Because they are not only fighting their own battles, they are also seeing their elders, their support system, their strength crumbling. So when a child sees their parents undergoing that loss and not being able to do something, there is a double impact. When the child is shaken from their comfort zone, their surroundings where they felt that security, that adds on more to their health. And so think about all those children, all those people who have lost everybody, who do not have anybody. And this happened very rapidly. So it didn't give us time to even adjust and change. So if we say that we need to accept, we need to change, we need to take a step forward, even that is very difficult. And we need to realize that too. And when we realize that, we need to extend that helping hand. And it is not an economic helping hand, it is just a pat on the shoulders. It is just standing next to somebody who is all alone at this time, making a call, touching lives in your own small ways. And I'm happy to know that many young ones have gone all out and done this. So I see this as a positive impact also, which has happened on the young mind. And they have been more quicker to adapt all these situations than all of us. So that is one more positivity which is there. A few days ago, I met a small girl in the lift, and she was there with her cell phone and taking online classes. And I just asked her, what do you like more, the online classes or when you are there in school? And instantly the reply came, online classes. And what struck me was that the instantaneous, the spontaneity with which the child came. So the child was able to make that transition and was able to adjust. And we think so much. We are thinking right now of the pros and cons, and we are delving too much on the negative impact which has happened, where we are not looking at the positives, what is there present for us, and what we need to pick up from here and move on. And that picking up those things is different for everybody. There cannot be something which is common and across for everybody, though the pandemic is the same for all. Yet its effects, its impact, its experience for us, our subjective understanding of that, what is going around with us and what we are experiencing and what we are able to share, is what is creating all that turmoil in us. And that is what we need to address before we look at any other thing. So that is the starting point. We have gone through phase 1, we are there in phase 2, and phase 3 is also there in some parts of the country, if we just talk about India. And we still are grappling with things to do. There are organizations who have worked and gone ahead, but there are many people, many organizations who still are not being able to get beyond that first step. And India, with its diversity at all levels, we are managing very well. I guess that is another positivity, another positive note which is there. So when we take a review of everything, we need to believe in this, that yes, we are managing very well. And if things are happening, they will happen for the better too. And it is not necessary that whatever bad has happened, ill has happened, and whatever effect it has, no matter how drastic it is, yes, we need to realize that some way that's it. But what do we do now? How do we take that step forward? And it is when you decide to take that step forward, when you want to come out and do something about your own health, about your own attitude, about your own internal dialogue that you give yourselves. So instead of us focusing more on the negatives and the things that we are not able to do, maybe we need to focus more consciously with a push. And if you're not able to get that push, that motivation ourselves, we need to look for others for that. And that is where our leaders, our young leaders, our students come into play. Us come into play, where we can help others navigate through their turmoils, at least understand, if nothing else. And that in itself is good enough. So what we have right now is good enough. We are blessed that we are here today, even discussing. And I'm sure the panelists who are coming after me are going to share more enriched information for you. As a mental health expert, I would like to work from these basics. All right. So believe in yourself, be more compassionate, express gratitude all the times. And that is how we will also become resilient. All right. So we need to bounce back, not only in our work, we need to bounce back here. Back again to the belief that yes, I'm still strong, even if my support is less now. I am my own support right now, and let's progress with that. That is the learnings that I have had till now. That is what I have thought of, and that is what I have understood from the various clients who have approached us. So irrespective of the fact that there is still a lot to be worked upon, These are the small, small things that we need to look at right now and work from here. I guess my time, allotted time is up now, and I will be taking up the questions later. So I hope I did some justice, and I'll thank once again to the entire team of ASCO and Professor Jori and all the panelists here for giving me your patient ear and inviting me. Thank you.
Truly, ma'am, you have completely said it, what we feel, that the losses that can be measured in data and figures on the internet, that is just the tip of the iceberg. There is a lot of invisible loss, but what we can do is we should look at the positive rays of light here and there, and we should find the small things and find the small pieces and bits of happiness. Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your thoughts with us. To give young minds a creative platform to share their take on the impact of the pandemic, we have organized an online podcasting competition in association with UNICEF Uttar Pradesh. It's heartening to note that we are receiving entries from across the country. Let's hear one of the podcasts submitted by a contestant. Can we please play the podcast?
Hello and welcome to the COVID Tales, a show where we share COVID experiences of people from different walks of life. I am your host and Hamsafar Bhargavi Singh, who's here to guide you through this journey. 1.5 years ago, none of us could have even imagined that a disease could have such a drastic and devastating impact on our lives, killing millions and literally bringing the world to a standstill. But these exceptional circumstances gave way for extraordinary experiences. People came out to support each other in ways that made us believe in the power of humanity again. Every person out there showed tremendous courage and inner strength while bearing the consequences of this pandemic.
गुजर जाएगा, गुजर जाएगा। मुश्किल बहुत है, मगर वक्त ही तो है। गुजर जाएगा, गुजर जाएगा।
From the many stories out there, in this episode, I bring to you one such heartwarming tale. The story is of Neha, a college student who shared a life-changing experience that occurred during the second wave. Neha's family got infected during the peak of the second wave in India, and her mother, who is also a diabetic patient, got seriously ill. With each passing day, her oxygen levels began to drop and she faced difficulty in breathing. With all her family members ill and the situation all around, Neha had lost all hopes of getting treatment for her mother. She was devastated, but in the darkest hour, a ray of sunshine beamed. Neha's friend knew of her situation and took the onus of helping her mother on themselves. They formed a group and began the hunt for an oxygen cylinder. They called every number posted on social media sites, followed up on all possible leads, reached out to hospitals, and within 30 hours were able to find an oxygen cylinder for Neha's mother. Neha said that she couldn't believe the news when her friends called her. It felt too good to be true. The timely supply of oxygen helped Neha's mother to recover, and after 3 days, her oxygen levels came back to normal. This incident shook Neha to her core, but also taught her an invaluable lesson that the power a community holds is incomparable. Even after her mother recovered completely, Neha couldn't stop thinking about how her life would have changed if something would have happened to her mother. Seeing all the mayhem and chaos around her, Neha decided that she couldn't just sit and watch. She wanted to help others the way her friends helped her. So, together with her friends, she started an Instagram page dedicated to helping find verified and authentic COVID resources. They took turns to work around the clock to help people connect with each other. Some days were hard. A lot of people died, but keeping their personal issues and losses aside, the group wholeheartedly dedicated themselves to the work. At the end, they didn't earn any monetary reward or appreciation, but collected duas and ashirwads of many souls touched by their help. Through her story, Neha helped me realize how the best way to repay kindness is to take it forward and help another one in need. Like Neha and her friends, many people across the country came together in never seen before ways to help each other when the world came crumbling down. For more such stories that prove to be a silver lining in the dark clouds of COVID 19, keep listening to the COVID Tales with me, Bhargavi Singh. Until next time, take care and goodbye.
An inspirational story told with a tinge of creativity about Neha and her friends. Just like this contestant, students between the age of 16 to 24 years can submit their entries at ascoevents@lko.amity.edu. You can select any one topic about COVID-19 and submit your entry by 10th of September. Rest of the details are mentioned in the chat box. Winners will receive exciting prizes, so make sure you participate and also spread the word among your peers.
The pandemic has resulted in job losses and economic uncertainty. According to UNICEF projections, as of November 2020, the global socio-economic crisis caused by the pandemic would push 142 million more young adults into the vicious cycle of poverty. I welcome our next panelist, Ms. Sangeeta R. Rajesh, Communications Consultant, World Bank India. Can we please have her AV?
Skilled and accomplished, Ms. Sangeeta Rosemary Rajesh is an eminent communication and knowledge cross-learning strategist with proficiency in research uptake, knowledge management, and knowledge brokering. Beside being a development and environment journalist by training and education, she encompasses a distinctive blend of outreach and social media innovation. She is also into public policy networking, press and international relations, advocacy and campaigns, brand development, strategic stakeholder engagement, and partner donor collaborations. With more than 20 years of exposure to learning and experience, she contributed to Rural 21, Global Press Institute, The New York Times as freelance journalist and has worked with leading national dailies in India. She has worked as a media researcher with Panos South Asia, Research Uptake Officer for Lansa Research Project with MS Swaminathan Research Foundation. She is also a consultant author and photographer for the International Fund for Agriculture Development under the United Nations World Food Programme. Besides this, Ms. Rajesh is also the former editor and head of publications and programs at Press Institute of India and Research Institute for Newspaper Development, correspondent cum copy editor at the Times of India, Economic Times, and also web documentation specialist in India for UNICEF, ActionAid and Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, Canada. She is currently working as communications consultant at World Bank India. Ms. Sangeeta Rajesh, we welcome you.
Sangeeta ma'am, we welcome you to the panel.
Thank you so much. This video really makes me sound like some star or something. But really, thank you so much for putting this together and for the warm welcome. And thank you to Professor Jori and Augustine for this, this topic idea, for inviting me to talk about the subject. Shall we go to the presentation straight away? Okay, so I've been asked to talk on the economic crisis, that has been faced by young people and their families as a result of COVID. The thing is, we've been hearing about the upset it has been caused, the COVID has caused to the health and the mental conditions of people in the country, and especially we heard the podcast of how young people have actually struggling to deal with this new form of uncertainty. Yet how they are coming together, the kind of resilience that they have sort of cultivated to get out of the situation, to get the best out of the situation. Could you hit enter, please? So I'm talking more in terms of something a little more tangible, which is money, and something that we all need, and which without which probably lives would be a lot more difficult. So enter, please. So what we're going to try and look at is how this pandemic has impacted our lives, yes, in a way, from the economic or financial perspective. And also we're going to try and look at how it has reshaped our lives, because today's situation could be tomorrow's, permanent process, or the permanent kind of strategy would need to use to deal with the current situation. Next slide, please. The first thing is, I think, before we go in, we have to first, understand whether money is important at all to us. And then if money is important, which I'm going with that assumption, then how much do we need, and why do we need it, and what role it plays in our lives? So I'm taking the stand that yes, money is important, but it is not everything. But of course, we do need it, and without it, we cannot really do much about what we want to do, our aspirations, or our dreams, or how we want to even manage the current livelihood situation. But money, how you use your money, somehow falls between your set of values, and also the how you earn and use your money in terms of for the larger good, and that sort of builds your happiness quotient. Enter, please. Enter again. So we're going to now look at what is this relationship between money and our well-being. How can money actually be important for our well-being? If we were to just have healthy minds and a healthy body, why isn't that enough to make us happy? And this latest research has been published by Matthew Kingsworth in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. And I've found that this is quite interesting. I thought I'll share these results with you. So the research looks at two forms of well-being. Now we think of well-being probably in terms of just happiness or just satisfaction, but this particular research looks at well-being from two perspectives. One is about people's feelings during moments in life. So how do you feel when something happens? A child is born, you feel happy. Somebody passes away, you feel sad. So it looks at people's feelings in different moments in their life. You lose a job, you feel sad. You gain a promotion, you're happy again. So you have these different moments in your life, and there's one measurement based on these feelings that happen. The second form of measurement the study does is to look at evaluate people's own lives from their own perspective. So at one point, probably you sit back and then you reflect and you think, okay, how has my life been so far? So I think this pandemic has probably given us that kind of a spot where, because of the uncertainty, we've started to sit back and reflect on what our lives have been, how we've used our time, whether we've actually spent it with our, the people we love, or we've been chasing, other things that probably are not so important in the end of life. So somehow this is this judgment, an evaluation we do for our own lives. And the result, interestingly, shows that whether it is experienced or evaluated well-being, both increase linearly when there is sufficient income. So as long as there is, you're earning enough money, and you don't have to be the ones earning big amounts of money or small. So irrespective of the quantum of the income that you earn, as long as you have an income, as long as you are financially stable, there's this both the evaluative and the experiences that you have both increase simultaneously and both in the upward direction. Next slide, please. So I just showing you these graphs. So I'll just show you these graphs to sort of explain how it is. Yeah, of course, the study is based, on certain respondents in the US, and is looking at a certain income bracket. But that actually shouldn't really matter, because what we have to look at is that when you look at in terms of your slab, irrespective of how low or how high your income is, it is about this overall satisfaction that you have in life, and your overall feeling of goodness or happiness that is measured, and it's always in the upward trend. There is no study to say that the more money you earn, the more unhappy you would be. So it's always in the upward trend. So that's something that is quite essential to establish. The other part of the slide, the second graph, shows you that your feelings of both positive and negative feelings. You can see that as the slab, as you earn more money, you have more positive feelings. There are more, your positive feelings are more elated. And if you look at your negative feelings, they keep coming down from wherever they start. So it's generally, if you when you don't have enough money, or you don't have a financial a stability, or you're always in debt, this sort of worries you, and this ruins your mental health as well as your physical health. And generally you become a very worried person, and this takes a toll on your on the people that surround you as well. So this is just to establish that it is important, and I know that you all know this already, but then it's also important that you consider where this pandemic hits us and how badly. Next slide, please. So what are people saying about the pandemic? These are major reports that have been published over last year. So you have the first one published by the World Bank, which looks at the global economic prospects. And this talks about the economy, the world as a whole, and how the different economies, emerging economies are facing, what kind of crisis they're facing. So if you look at it, it talks about the shock or the uncertainty, or this kind of COVID-19. Of course, it's already been established that no one expected it, but the challenges are more for the economies that are emerging and growing, that are trying to make a place for the young people, trying to offer job opportunities for the young people, trying to expand industries, trying to expand agriculture. So this is where the suffering is most felt. And if you look at the International Labour Organization, they talk about the young people specifically. This report talks about the young people and how this COVID situation has actually made the situation of integration even more challenging. So integrating young people in society, there is no perfect formula for it. Governments have different schemes, have companies and organizations come together. They have different platforms to try and integrate both the economic and the social integration of young people in society. And this is already a challenge, because there's also this advancement in technology on one side, the dreams and visions of the young people that are coming out of schools and colleges. They all want better lives. And in the end, you find that this crisis has sort of put a setback in all and everybody's dreams and aspirations. The last study, of course, I'm showing you is from the UNESCO initiative, which is specifically on the global youth study in relation to COVID-19. And this tells you that the kinds of disruptions in life, so it has been from an education perspective, it looks at a professional development perspective, from your rights, the youth have their rights, and this also has been affected in so many ways. Next slide, please. So what has it been for young people? I'm just going to delve into that particular study a little more, so that it gives you since it deals with the youth and it deals with people both studying as well as working populations between the ages of say 18 to 30. So it also gives you, and most of you fall in that, right? Criteria. This study would give you a sort of an idea of how everybody else feels as well, and how you could also, relate to the kind of results that have come out. So it says that this, of course, it's systematic and disproportionate. Now, why is this negative effect so disproportionate? It's only because of the income variation and inequalities among the youth in the different societies. And you see that it's the more vulnerable populations like the young women or the school-going children and people, youth in the low and middle income countries that actually feel this burden the most. The youth in the European countries and the Western world are not so much suffering as much as we would think. And so then, therefore, the effect of COVID has been disproportionate. And you can see that this uncertainty it has affected every segment of your life. And that's what the study is talking about. Next slide. I don't know if these figures are very clear. This is the best I could do, given that these are the colors used. It's not very clear, but I can explain it to you. So the first figure, which is on figure 4, talks about this different age groups. So they try to divide this data by age. So you start from 18 and it goes on to 34. And then they look at its gender segregated. So you have for women and then you have men. And then they also try to divide it by the professions. So they take the managerial cadre, then they look at professionals, and they look at technicians or even the associate professionals. And then last, they look at the support staff, the service staff, and the sales staff. So these they try to try and segregate as much as possible to try and reflect on which segment is having it the worst. And from this data, you can see that the age, the service or the support staff will go from down up. And you can see that the support or the sales or the staff that are not really, highly educated, probably the degree holders, and maybe even a few masters, but the degree holders, mostly the chunk of the population who are mostly graduates, they are the ones who are having it the worst. They are the ones who are unable to get out of the financial crisis or situation that COVID has brought to them. Whereas as you go up the ladder in your profession, the kind of variation is not so much. It's manageable. Okay, then you can also see that between the men and the women, the difference is not so much. More or less, they are same. Of course, there are more men. The data showing more men because obviously more men are employed. So therefore, you see that it's more men are affected. Also, remember the respondents are global, and we don't really have the kind of the sample that details of the sample that the study has used. But by and large, you get the idea that yes, both are somewhat equally affected, men and women. And in the third thing, if you look at the age category, you can see that the school or the college or the students that are just out of school, getting into university, they are the most affected population. So they are the ones struggling the most in terms of how to manage the consequences of the pandemic. If you look at figure 6, there again, you have the data divided into different age groups, but you're looking at two different panels, panel A and panel B. The panel A looks at the change in income. So there are a lot of consequences to employment as of today. So there are people with having to have forced to leave their jobs and without any jobs. There are people who have made compromises to take a lower paying job as opposed to what the job they had because they lost it. There are a group of people who are also having to maybe have the same job but going for a lesser salary, because I don't know if you know, but then there's this email circulating from all corporates saying no work, no pay. So therefore, it became that you will do your work, but you cannot get paid because the clients for whom you're working themselves don't have the money to pay. So therefore, you work, but you don't get a pay, or you work and you get only half a pay, or you work half the time and get, that many days pay. So there were different combinations of employment. So we've been used to working, say, 5 days, 6 days a week, 9 to 5 or 10 to 6 or whatever. And you know that this is the amount of money that will come into your bank account at the end of the month or the beginning of the month. And you can plan have financial planning. You need to, pay your mortgages, or you need to pay your house rents, or you need to pay, your children's education, etc. But now things had changed. The entire families working on budgets, middle class or low middle class families that depend on their monthly salaries to be able to plan for the next one, who are sometimes hand to mouth, or sometimes have loans, car loans, credit card loans, bike loans, and they were entirely dependent on this amount that they would receive at a particular date. It was promised to them. And now they are having to see a complete shift. And for no fault of theirs, no fault of the companies as well, it's just the situation, and they had to make good of that situation. So that is the kind of data that you can see here. You can see most of them had to stop working because there were no jobs. There was no work happening. There were no industries were shut down. All the hotels or the service industry was shut down. Manufacturing industry was shut down. So when there's no demand for the produce, then there's no point in having workmen. So therefore, many of them had to stop working. There were retrenchments, and people just had to leave their jobs. And they were said that they would be given back their jobs, when it was possible. It happened in my own family, so I do understand this situation. And there were also situations where you had partial reduction, as I explained to you, of working hours, but most of them had lost their jobs. And most of them are young workers who are just starting off their career and who have plans to move up. And so all their dreams had suddenly changed. If you look at panel B here in this chart, it talks about the change in working hours. And so then it talks about people and what has been the average decrease in working hours. And since most of them lost their jobs, the working hours were just to zero, So that tells you how much the society as a whole suffered from the consequences of the pandemic. Next slide, please. Okay, this is again a huge data, but then you just have to look at the main, the main highlights of this. And you can see that this is basically from young people aged between 18 and 29, and how they've reported against the hours worked, their income, and their productivity. And you can see the comparison by countries. If the country is low income, if the country is lower middle income, upper income, so it depends. And you can see that the countries with the lowest income are the ones that suffered the working hour situation the most, the income situation also, and also the productivity. So you can see that the higher income countries, they sort of balanced it out, say, comparatively to the lower income countries. And if you look above at the gender issue again, you can see it's almost equal. There's not much of difference, which is probably a good thing that women are on par with men in a way. From a gender perspective, I think maybe it's a good thing. But then from a productivity perspective, you can see that is also almost equal. But the losses, therefore, are also equal in that sense as well. And then if you look at the public sector part of this, and you look again, it's divided by professions, and you can see who are the ones who took the most salary cuts. And you can actually see that it was, although the lower, the bottom sort of category of employees lost their jobs, the higher you go, you had to take a larger salary cut. And therefore, the incomes were either halved or 20%, 30%, depending, of course, on where you stood in the hierarchy of an organization. And the last segment talks about the private sector and how do they manage the public sector versus the private sector. You can look at it, and you can look and see that the public sector too suffered as much as the private sector. Although the private sector, the last category of the sales force, suffered the worst in this entire situation, where again you have all the youngsters, the graduates, the young people who cannot go further, who cannot afford to put in fees or pay money for the masters, who have to really get on with their jobs, or the people who have done the polytechnic, who can't really afford even to be a graduate, that they have to really take on job-oriented courses and get a job. So those were the people who actually suffer the most through this situation so far. Next slide, please. So I know it's been a very depressing few slides, but that is actually the reality. And I thought, let's give you something to hope for the future, rather than dwell on the current or the past. We should always look towards the future, and we should be able to still have that vision to move forward. So therefore, I thought, let's present to you something which is a little more positive. So I've taken again this from the Global Economic Prospects Report from the World Bank. This is the 2021, the latest report. And this says the economy, the global economy will expand. The expanding rate will not be as much, but it will expand. And this is probably the strongest because we've gone so low that we need to bounce back. If you know the economics, the peak and the top. So you need to bounce back. You don't have an option. And I think as a human race, we are so resilient that we find resources, we find ways and means to put ourselves back in that fighting, in that fight towards COVID. So the recovery, of course, will be uneven. That's the prediction. And we can already see that. And it's also going to have a huge, setback for emerging economies because they've borrowed heavily to be able to push their economy forward. So that's something that we have to expect when we go out looking for a job. We are going to have to be prepared to have these different expectations. The other one is the third point is like the emerging market or developing economies also depends on the vaccination. So if we look at India and the kind of population we have, and you look at the percentage of people vaccinated, then that itself brings down the economy. And that itself brings down the investors. The investors are afraid to invest if our population is not vaccinated. So the smaller the country, the quicker you vaccinate, the better the cost of the growth. That's the kind of trend that we are going to see. And the global outlook of the downsides and the risks are all going to be there. And they're going to be because we all know that there's a prediction that there would be a third wave. For India, it's said to happen next month. And we don't really know for sure. But then, in the mind, we are prepared. And therefore, there's going to be, again, financial stress, although things now seem to be quite normal in the country. And then towards the end, you have also that the role the policymakers have. Role the policymakers have in creating this balance and helping the society fight this economic crisis, in creating price stability, because you can see that the price of ordinary goods like your food items, your fruits or your vegetables, they are really high, and ordinary people cannot afford, costlier food, and therefore the government should be able to stabilize the prices. They're trying to do it through distribution of free rice and etc. But then again, to combat COVID, you need to have good immunity, and good immunity does not come from rice and your staples, but it comes from meats, it comes from vegetables, it comes from fruits high in zinc and high in protein. So if those items are costlier, then the people will not buy it, and then again you will slink back. Your health parameters, your nutrition parameters will slink back. Wherever we've climbed so far, I think we would drop back if the government does not manage price stability for commodities and for further sustainability and growth. Next slide, please. So what does all this mean for young people? What can you look forward to in the next 1 year, perhaps? One thing we already know that the world of work, the world of employment has changed so much. There are so many changes, both structurally, there's changes both hierarchically, there's changes technologically, in technology as well. And many have now discovered that they really don't need to go to a place of work or place of office to actually work or to deliver the same productivity. So that's sort of a realization, and therefore organizations are now, cutting down on overhead costs as a result and able to employ their people back. So in a way, this change has led to a lot of synergy between the employers and the employees in terms of how do we go forward. As opposed to before, it used to be top-down approach. The employers will tell you this, and this is how it should be done. Now there is more collaboration and cooperation, and there's a lot more synergy in working together. So I think that's a positive thing now. And therefore, ideas from young people are more welcome now in terms of from the management side. And then you see that the disruptions are there in the current pattern of production, but this is also giving form to new forms of employment. For example, the e-commerce section. Never would we have ever dreamed that the e-commerce would change so much. And now, even though people are graduates or even postgraduates, I find many of them, delivering food, either through Zomato or through Swiggy, or so that is another thing. So when there are job losses in one sector, you find that another sector immediately opens up to try and compensate. I'm not saying it's equal. I'm not saying it, validates, but then there is another sector which has opened up, which we didn't think would happen. So that's a positive thing. The third point I just wanted to highlight is that the SDG 8, it does emphasize that we have full and productive employment and decent work for all. So that is a right of every young man and woman. And this requires, of course, a coalition of partnerships from both the public sector and the private sector. And also this requires, as the policy, the policymakers take action to sort of balance this cooperation and equation between both the sectors, and try to provide this rightful employment, decent rightful employment for a decent livelihood and earnings for the young people of today. And I think the very first step is respecting the rights of the youth. And I think that's a must for governments of today, especially in India, to give the youth a voice to express themselves, to talk about their economic condition and their situation, and how that voice has weight enough to be able to reflect in policy. Next, I think this is my last slide. Yes, this is my last slide. And thank you for the opportunity and the time to present this information.
Truly, the unprecedented loss for today's young generation is hard to comprehend. Thank you, Ms. Sangeeta Rajesh, for your insights on the topic. Before moving further, participants can post their questions in the chat box for the panelists.
Closure of educational institutions has been a significant priority to curb the spread of COVID-19. But if we look at the history, the same has been the reason for an increase in child marriages and child labor. According to UNESCO-UNICEF World Bank survey of June-July 2020, at least 463 million students around the globe remain cut off from education because of the lack of equipment that are needed for learning at home. I now welcome our third panelist, Mr. Augustine Valieth, Founder Director, Asian Center for Entertainment Education, former Communications Specialist, UNICEF. Can we please have the AV?
Augustine Valieth is a communication strategist, writer, publisher, and communication trainer with 45 years of experience. Mr. Valieth, a trained journalist, joined the Voluntary Health Association of India in 1975 and was its head of the department publications for 10 years. He has headed the Health Accessories for All in the Catholic Health Association. With a proven track record in mobilizing and working with young people, he has worked at UNICEF for 23 years as a communication specialist. He has served as media advisor to the Government of India and is also the founder of the Global Network of Community of Colleges. A passionate advocate of child rights, he has contributed to many national campaigns including Child Survival Revolution, Child Rights Movement, Global Movement for Children, and Universal Immunization Program. Mr. Valieth is the founder director of the Asian Center for Entertainment Education and is working on linking creative communities to priorities of the current times. He believes teaching and learning should be contextual and future-oriented and is also a great believer in entertainment education. He is associated with the New Millennium Listeners Institute and the Global Network of the Community College as founder director. Chairperson of Mindshare Yuva, Mr. Valieth is the editor of Unilink and Link for the UNICEF Pensioners Group in India. He is currently the India chairperson of the Geneva-based Non-Violence Project Foundation. Mr. Augustine Valieth, we welcome you.
Augustine sir, I welcome you to share your thoughts and weigh in on the topic now.
Can we go on to the slide? Or maybe before the slide start, is Ruth Liano around? Is she still in the group?
I'm still here. I'm still here.
Yes. I want to say something about Ruth before I start. Ruth is more Indian than most of us because she has spoken for children of UP, but she has also spoken up for children of Andhra Pradesh, children of Telangana, children of Karnataka. So that's an enormous experience. And why I'm mentioning this here, not to flatter her, but at ASCO, I would like you to someday call her separately and ask for her insights, her inspirations in working in India. And that should go as a record because, even before her, very, quite insightful, inspirational people had come and when we never recorded them. So we don't know what they learned. We don't know what they are taking home. We don't know what they want to leave behind. At least for Ruth, we should do that. So this is my request to Amity, and maybe Gitali and Amity should follow this up. Just make her comfortable in a room and ask her to speak. And if she needs questions, ask her questions. So this is something which I would expect the Amity Communications unit to do, and which would be a very useful record for all of us. And so this is something which, if I was there, I would have been happy to do. But I think we should do this for Ruth. That is my humble request to all of you. Now, can I go to the?
Thank you, Augie. That I can do also.
I can't get over that your picture with the Andhra tribal women in their uniform. It's a very enduring.
I have many more from you.
I know, they're very enduring picture, and I wish it was shown around.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that.
Welcome. Okay. Now, can we go to the slides? Yeah, before you go to the first slide, let's stay with this one. I want to take you to Miami in 1982. There was a school in Miami which was having its graduation for high school. And, as usual, one student was supposed to speak. So they picked up one student who was supposed to go to Princeton, that university where Einstein taught. So they thought he must be the right guy to speak. So they called him. And what was he supposed to do? He was supposed to thank his teachers. He was supposed to thank his university. To the institution, and he was supposed to say some nice things. But instead, that fellow, Nikama as he is, what he did was he presented a whole plan of building cities in the space. And how, as time comes, the cities will float, and outside, and there will be yachts, and there will be yachts, and there will be lots of things. So this is what that fellow presented. But useless, right? It's a wishful thinking, So, but what happened was that guy's name is he is the guy who founded Amazon. And he's worth $300 million now because he couldn't keep his wife happy, but he keeps lots of us happy. And so my presentation is going to be something like that. This is not what you expect. This is going to be a presentation of data and figures and how COVID has done this, COVID has done that. I am going to address many of you who are much bigger than NASA now sitting on your chair. And so I'm going to address the young people as they are. First slide, please. Now, if you are in Lucknow, there are two things that will affect you. One is the Hanuman Chalisa. Whether you like it or not, whether you believe it or not, you will hear it all the time. Everybody is chanting that. And it is 40 steps. And one major theme of Hanuman Chalisa is Sangat Mohan. And Sangat Mohan means, you take the pain of somebody away. Now, you think that is a very ancient idea, that's a Hanuman idea. No, that is the idea of all the corporates. The companies were set up, the companies established themselves to take some of your pain away. And that's what they advertise. Let's take your pain away. We'll take that pain away. You don't have to wash your plates. You don't have to wash your clothes. Our machine will do that. That's what the companies advertise. But what I'm going to say is, Now, all of you, or each one individually, think about a pain that you will take away from the people. A pain to which you will dedicate yourself and you will work to move that pain along. You will forget everything else. Don't look for a job. Don't look for, when your director and Sangeeta and I, we all got our jobs, we were very happy. And we began to installer, and we told everybody, see, I'm working with PTI, I'm working with UNICEF, I'm working with Indian Express, I'm working with Hindu and all that. But the truth is, you people don't have to do that. You don't have to look for a job. You can actually find your future without looking for a job. Some of you may be picked up by companies because you are so good. Some of you may be bought over for $1 million. That's the stage that I want you to be in. So get ready. You don't need a job. You get ready to take away one pain and take that pain completely off. That is my first message to you. And if it is a COVID-related pain, go ahead. If it is not a COVID-related pain, that's also fine. Next slide, please. Now you see, finally, I had a 1 point there and I have moved to 5, 6, 7. And you must be thinking I must be growing old. No, that is deliberate. What I'm asking you is, because the 4, 5, the 2, 3, 4 will come as the last slide, because that is the call to action. So what I'm going to tell you is, you become a communication enterprise. So don't try to be a student. Don't try to be an employee. Don't try to find a job. You be an enterprise in yourself. So you take your position and join the gig economy. It is so huge. And we don't know what the gig economy, you ask me, I'll give you the gig economy passport and the visas. But go there, because me and Sanjay, Jori and Sangeeta, we are all migrants to the gig economy. You are natives. So get going, join the gig economy and take charge. And ask people, where can I be useful? Where can I team up? And there is an enormous possibility in the world to freelance, to join somebody maybe in Greenland or maybe in Bogota, maybe in New Zealand. We don't know. But that chance is there. This is the generation that has an opportunity. So team up with anyone, global, whatever. And if you don't know where the freelance opportunities are, ask me later, I will tell you. Next, please. Then you be an author and a blogger and a vlogger. What does that mean? That means you will research. There was a time in our time for us to get some information, we had to dig and, we had to toil. But now Google has everything. Gyan is there for the asking. But learn to research. But learn to research in such a way that you also ask your neighbor, what is the issue? That you ask people. So you should learn that research, that micro research, and the Google research. Then you try to, you learn to zero in on the content in a big way. You learn to write, you learn to produce, you learn to promote. And then you publish whatever you publish in 10 avatars. What I mean by 10 avatars, which means you publish in all, in forms in which all the multiple intelligence can understand. So some like it audio, some like it video, some like it as a PowerPoint, some like it as games, some like. Go ahead, produce them all in all those avatars. Learn to get that art. It's not important how you say it. It is important that are you saying it enough for that person. So, get into the habit of learning multiple intelligence and meeting those needs. Then you publish in people's languages. One of the biggest slavery of India is we think unless it is done in English, it is not done. I, in my younger days, have published in 17 languages. It is not difficult. So if your audience speaks some other language, get your thing into that language. Because otherwise you are useless. It really doesn't change their lives. So there are 20 languages in India. We are the United Nations of India. Let's do it in all the languages. So be prepared for that. And there are easy ways of doing that. If there are no easy ways of it, let us find easy ways of doing it. Next slide, please. And my third leap is, you think of the customer journey. What happens to the customer journey? There are some people who are totally underserved. We need to reach out to them. And we don't know them. We blame them. We call them resistant community. We call all kinds of nonsense about them. But unless they are with us, you cannot win over a virus. We cannot blame them and get away because virus doesn't make a difference between you and the underserved. That is the biggest lesson we learned in polio. We decided one community was a resistant community. It didn't work. Then we said that is the underserved community. We need to find more ways of serving that community. That worked. So every child was immunized. So polio went away from India. So if you want to immunize everybody, go for the underserved first. Then go for the unaware. This one thing that Amitabh Bachchan says on the TV won't be enough for everybody. So we need to find. And then there are some people who are just waiting to be nudged, to be pushed. That is the category which needs Amitabh Bachchan reminder. But the unaware needs much more intense, much more in-depth and closer home approach. So we need to be aware of that. Then there are some people waiting to be celebrated because they are participating, they are doing many things, but we are not telling them. One of the very interesting experiences of working for polio in UP was this. Lots of journalists came to lots of places and blamed us. That doctor is correct, this one is not right, that one is not right, this one is not happening, that one is not happening. All right, all that is true. But then one group came from the United States and they said they saw a disabled boy whom we identified. We identified means a community health worker identified. And a community health worker. And this disabled boy closing his shop, his mobile shop, going around on immunization day and saying, don't let this not happen to you. My parents forgot about the 2 drops. So get your child immunized. So they made a film on that called The Last Mile. And that was a finalist in Oscar in the documentary division. So you see, you can be a journalist, you can blame everybody. You can be a media person, you can find fault everywhere. But here is somebody in Meerut found an Oscar-winning formula. So look for it. There are people waiting to be celebrated, people waiting to be, brought to town. So look for that. Next slide, please. Then, if you know it, then you have to be a mentor. So how will you become a mentor? You develop a course. You market your course on that subject. Because now you're specializing on one pain. So take that pain seriously, develop a course, market that course, and convert that course into a boot camp that can deliver it whenever, wherever. And a camp that can be downloaded on internet if they cannot reach you. A camp that can be turned into an app if somebody is more comfortable with that. And convert that into an email and WhatsApp course, an email course. Anyone can get it in their home every day, one lesson after another, one lesson after another. There are people who do that in India. They teach difficult sentence by one email a day. So it's not a burden on anybody. Then, you create YouTube videos and you create videos in multiple languages. So, everything that, whether you want to cook sweet dish in Lucknow or whether you want to cook biryani, you now go to the YouTube. So how to live also can be learned from YouTube. So be there, but let the content be there. So, and then you get into that, as I told you in that customer avatar journey, there are some there are some who are unreached, some who are waiting to be nudged, some who are waiting to be celebrated, some who are waiting to be picked up and embraced. So get on to that journey. Next, please. So, and if, anything that you do needs hardware and tools. So open an online shop. It is not difficult anymore. You don't have to do. You can put online. It will work on its own. And there's so many people who give you a platform. So get a super catalog whatever is available, and so that you know what is not available. The gap you can make them. So make intellectual properties, make knowledge properties. And then be an affiliate marketer. I told you, Jeff Bezos is contributing to me because I am a Amazon affiliate marketer. So when people buy things from Amazon, I get money. So if you don't know that trick, let me know. I will certainly help you in finding out. But that's one way of staying safe. Be rich on internet. Then learn the art of recommending. What is missing is there is so much knowledge, but there are no curators around. There are no people who to say, no, this is good, this is better, this one is ideal for you. That's a big service if you can do it. Go through everything and say this one is better, this one is more useful. That should be a big service. So many ways of doing it. And then have often offline and online displays, exhibitions, take the lead so that people know what is available. And this can be on any subject that you choose, any subject that you, on which the pain you want to take away. And then you should have events which are huge and frequent, that people are constantly reminded of what your issue is and what we have to do. Next slide, please. So, and now, see, I'm serious. You start your own World Institute on this. You create an ecosystem because you are the expert on that subject. You have become by doing all this. And if there is somebody knows better than you, you tell them, bring them also into this. But you start your own institute. Just imagine, put your name to an institute and say, I started it through my own efforts, my own research. I found this. And so that should be the place that everyone goes to. If I know a subject, like for instance, so what is the subject? Suppose, any unemployment in COVID. So if you know where the jobs are, where to get them, how to get them. So you should have one source, one World Institute who looks at everything. And bring up all the skills and, assemble all the skill building that is available. There is so much out there. So you don't have to reinvent the wheels. You need to assemble them. You need to find friends. And if it is not there, then start creating them. And for that also, I told you, the freelancing, there are a lot of people out there who are willing to do it for you at very low price. I don't know if you have heard about Fiverr. Fiverr is a company which does anything for you at $5, where whatever it is that you want to do, and they're all over the world. If you don't believe me, go to Fiverr, the website, look for it. They're all over the world. You can hire them at leisure, at will, whatever you want to do. Tomorrow you want a book cover to be done, in $5 they will do it for you. And look for it. I mean, they're all spend. There are people from all over the world who are willing to do it. The Israelis are willing to do it. The Filipinos are willing to do it. The Indians are willing to do it. Now you choose which one you want, which one you can afford. So this is a big coming together of the world, the tools and the tool makers and the skill builders. So take advantage of it. It has never happened before. So these are all the, so all the practices bring together. So what did I say? We bring knowledge together. We bring skills together. We bring tools together. We bring practices together. That is your World Institute on that one subject. And leave the space for other subjects, leave the space for others. The next slide, please. And the next slide says you are the leader. So how do you become the leader? Next slide, please. So you remember Gandhi said, there goes the people, I must follow them. I must follow them because for I am their leader. So this is true. You want to be a leader, follow the people. But there is another bigger truth. There is something called the adjacent possible. And the adjacent possible is whatever is, when you do something along comes along, which will make you larger than what you are. And it is lying there. Nobody sees it. You have to look for it. Sometimes it will strike you. And that is the big opportunity. So look for the adjacent possible. And if you don't know, if it is not clear to you, ask me. I'll send you the link. You will be able to understand this concept. Next, please. So now I come to the first three steps that I hid away from you. So here is my next 40 mighty steps which I have given you. These steps are to prominence and prosperity. So take them, be prominent, be prosperous. But you start, you remember who is that? The person who wrote Habits, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. He said, think of the end in mind. So write your obituary. So what is your obituary? 50 saal baad, 100 years after, you will die. Then your friends decide, there must be a plaque near your house which says who you are. Write that plaque now. This is what I contributed. This is what I did to the world. But write that now and live that now. It will be a great thing to do. Think of the end in mind. What you want to be remembered for. You are a funny fellow. You made everybody laugh. You drank enough. You made lots of friends, lots of girlfriends, lots of boyfriends. This is what people want you to remember. No, you want to be remembered something significant that you did. So decide what that is and write that down. Then my last thing is the fourth point is, this is a quotation from Saint Catherine of Siena. She said, the way to heaven must also be heaven. So don't go around with that horrible victim loop. कि ये क्या करवा दिया मुझे, इतना hard work कर रहा हूँ. No, go to heaven happily. Do whatever you do well. And so if you are going to prominence and prosperity, be prominent, be prosperous, make money on the way, not to the wrong ways. There's already so many opportunities mentioned here. See where the opportunities are and be prominent. Let you be known. Let you not be one more student of Amity. No, you are somebody to be known and reckoned with. I repeat what I said. You for me are more than NASA. You are much bigger than NASA, and I want you to know that. And I want you to live that. So, this kind of speech I could not have made to Sanjay Jori when he was young, because we didn't think like that at that time. Our ambitions were very limited. But to you, I can say, because the world has changed. And we are all, as I told, we are migrants. We don't even know this world. But you can. So go for it. Take your student time to do that. So this is what I have to say to you. Is my time over?
I think there will be questions. So
absolutely no problem.
I wanted to just come in, Augustine.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So with your permission, Augustine, I understand that this has been a very tough time for young minds and young children. And you spoke about for every child, every right, right? And I do believe that the group that we have here, we are still blessed. We are still much, much blessed. So while, while somebody, the panelists in the beginning, she said that look for the rays of hope, right? I just wanted to, share with you a couple of stories of children who have been affected by COVID. And I just want all of us to give me 3 minutes, right? I want to share some stories of children that we have gathered from the field. And then I will leave to you, I leave with you, a request to locate such stories, to bring them to the fore, to be able to do something for them, for these children who have lost everything. So, and I'm seeing in the chat box in one of the questions that we are not talking about the positive effects of the pandemic. We should also be aware of the negative effects of the pandemic, right? And I think the thankfulness starts when we understand that there are many more who have gone through a lot more. Okay, and how can we step out of our comfort zone? And as youth, my God, I have heard some amazing stories of what young children have done, youth have done. That podcast was just one little example. So I'm going to request, with your permission, I'm going to request my colleague Salman to please play the film. Salman, go ahead and play the film. Thank you. We had done this film for public representatives. We played it for legislators. Go ahead, Salman.
Is it audible now?
Yes.
कोविड की दूसरी लहर ने पूरे भारत में कहर मचाया है, जिसका असर बच्चों पर भी पड़ा है। कई बच्चों ने अपने माता पिता या दोनों में से किसी एक को खो दिया।
मैं 17 कंप्लीट होके 18 में लगने वाली हूँ। मेरी मम्मी की डेथ 2019 में ब्लड कैंसर से हो गई थी। पापा भी बहुत परिश्रम करके पढ़ा रहे थे, उसके बाद पापा की कोविड से डेथ हो गई। इस समय हम अपने चाची चाचा के पास में रह रही हूँ। इंटर करके बीए के बाद बीएड सोचा था, पर पापा के डेथ के बाद ये सपना लग रहा नहीं मेरा पूरा हो पाएगा।
मेरी उम्र 18 वर्षीय है। मेरी मम्मी ब्यूटी पार्लर का काम करती थी। मेरे पिताजी को नशा करने की आदत है। हाल ही में मेरी माँ की कोरोना वायरस से डेथ होने के कारण मेरे घर की स्थिति बिगड़ गई है। मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा मैं क्या करूँ। मैं बिल्कुल डिप्रेशन में चला गया था।
मैं 8 साल का हूँ। मैं सेकेंड में पढ़ता हूँ। पापा की डेथ कोरोना से हुई थी। डॉक्टर ने कागज में कोरोना नहीं लिखा था, जिससे मेरी मम्मी की मदद कोई नहीं कर पा रहा। मैं और मेरी बहन आगे पढ़ना चाहते हैं।
हमारी उम्र 16 साल है। कोरोना में हमारे अम्मा अब्बा का इंतकाल हो गया है। एक छोटा भाई एक छोटी बहन है जो दूसरे रिश्तेदार के यहाँ है। हम यहाँ जरवल में अपने रिश्तेदार के यहाँ रहने आए हैं। पढ़ाई लिखाई सब छूट गई है। पढ़ना था, कुछ करना था आगे, पर अब अम्मा अम्मा है नहीं, रिश्तेदार कब तक ख्याल रखेंगे। खाने पीने सबसे बड़ी दिक्कत ये है कि खाने की दिक्कत हो लगी है। और कुछ लोग आए रहे, फॉर्म भर के लेके गए हैं, कह रहे थे कि सरकार मदद करी, और पूरी उम्मीद अब सरकार से ही है कि जो फॉर्म भर के लेके गई ना वो से मदद मिली तो हम अपने भाई बहन के लिए कुछ कर सके। तो अपने लिए तो ना पढ़ सके, पर अपने भाई बहन के लिए कुछ कर सके।
कोरोना काल में बाल संरक्षण के कई मुद्दे सामने आए, मगर कुछ बच्चों ने डटकर इनका विरोध किया।
मैं 16 वर्ष की हूँ। मेरे पिता एक किसान हैं। मैं स्मार्ट बेटी कार्यक्रम में इंटरनेट साथी शिल्पा दीदी के साथ में किशोरी वॉलंटियर के रूप में काम कर रही हूँ। कोविड-19 में मेरे पिताजी मेरा शादी करना चाह रहे थे, पर मैंने विवाह का विरोध किया। मैंने अपने शिल्पा दीदी से मदद मांगी, परंतु गांव में ऐसी बहुत सी सारी लड़कियां हैं जिनका विवाह हो गया। उन्होंने अपना बचपन, अपनी खुशी, अपनी शिक्षा और अपने सारे सपने खो दिए।
सरकार द्वारा कई बच्चों तक सामाजिक सुरक्षा योजनाओं का लाभ पहुंचाया गया।
12 साल के हैं। पहले हम कूड़ा बीनने जाते थे। कोरोना काल में मेरे पापा का काम छूट गया। घर का खर्चा चलाना मुश्किल हो गया।
सरकारी योजनाओं की मदद से मुस्कान जो पहले कूड़ा बीनती थी, उसे शिक्षा की मुख्य धारा से जोड़ा गया। आज मुस्कान कक्षा 3 में पढ़ रही है और बहुत खुश है। बहुत प्रयास किया जा रहा है, पर मंजिल अभी दूर है। सरकार को, स्वयंसेवी संस्थाओं को, समुदायों को, सभी को एकजुट होकर योगदान देना होगा ताकि बच्चों का भविष्य उज्जवल बन सके। आइए बच्चों के लिए मिलकर हम हर संभव कोशिश करें।
Over to you, Augie. I think you can explain this better than I. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you. When I spoke about Sangat Mohan, this is what I meant. What I meant was we take pain by pain, and we zero in on it, we focus on it. We don't go on to a general sympathy. Somebody gets on to that. Somebody takes it as his or her. Much similar things happen when we have HIV/AIDS. Dealt with a lot of orphans, children. We saw girls at the age of 11 being the lady of the house for another 7 children. We saw lots of this happening, and much more now. So I think, but what we did not have at that time was the technology to take it on. The students of ASPA at that time would have felt very alone, but this time they don't have. Now there is, for each one of them, there is a technology solution which you and I perhaps may not know, but they might come up with something. That is my hope. My hope is in somebody there coming, iski rasta ye hota. And then getting that network in, whoever it is, And now also what has happened with technology is this: you can have a tribe of your own. You can create a tribe of your own. You know, who would support that child? Now we don't have to go to the familiar path. Somebody might suddenly spring up and say, "I will do it." Now, now there was a baby in Kerala for whom they were raising money. 18 crores of rupees arrived, and the baby died. So now they are finding ways to, distribute that money to other children who deserve it.
Right.
So, the world has become much bigger and much smaller at the same time.
Right.
So this is what our young people need to be aware.
Absolutely.
When first we dealt with ASCO, we were asking them, just go and see the children. So then they went out with a camera, they shot them, they came back highly sensitized. But now we are saying, see their problems.
Correct.
But
And not just see the
just see and
problems.
come back.
Not just see the problem. As communicators, I think it is our responsibility to make sure that those problems are brought to the attention of communities, of policymakers, and the people in legislators, so that there is redressal of the issue. So I think I'm very impressed with the kind of students that Amity has. And the reason why I butted in and I showed this film was in the hope that if this could trigger that compassion and and passion to reach out and do what you're best at doing, bring the issue to the front and make sure that there is redressal of those issues.
I will only add actually one sentence to what you said. And that sentence is very old. It's very old in public health history. One international expert was asked to come down to India to guide us on smallpox eradication. So he said, I have come to India to eradicate smallpox. And I will not leave India until I eradicate smallpox. And I'm not going to stay long. So to every ASCO student, I want to say this. I've come to take this problem. And I'm going to stay here till this problem is solved. And I'm not going to stay very long with it. So that's the spirit in which I would like many of the students to approach this, but create their own dynamism, create their own group, and don't say now UNICEF didn't do that or World Bank didn't do that. That's the trap we all got into.
Right. And Augie, I'm going to just come in here because we did a small project in Balrampur and Shravasti, 2 districts which have had the maximum child marriage cases. So 6 out of 10 girls get married before 18 in Shravasti. It is India's #1 top district for child marriage. And we reached out to about 750 girls in Shravasti and 750 girls in Balrampur. Young girls, adolescent girls in rural areas. And we gave them access to a mobile phone, just access to a mobile phone, which I am sure that every student at Amity has, right? I'm sure that you have access to a mobile phone. These young girls in far off villages of Shravasti and Balrampur, 1,500 girls, they actually identified stories of positive deviance of girls who had resisted child marriage, almost 200 stories shot on mobile phones. We actually got those stories from them, right? That is the power of communication. And so what was the change? The change was when they went out to capture those stories, they felt empowered because they were handling a mobile phone, which is a digital divide. Girls don't get mobile phones in rural areas. They had a mobile phone. They went out confidently. They asked questions. They gathered stories, and They felt so good. They shot the film, they gave it to us, we gave them back the edited film. And then what happened was, out of those 1,500 girls, and Sangeeta is here. Sangeeta, how many of those girls who were out of school went back to school? Sangeeta, how many girls went back to school? It's almost, I think, 400 girls went back to school. So out of 1,500 girls, some girls were in school and some were out of school. So almost 400 girls went back to school.
Yes,
That is
Kitali
the
ji, you are
power
right.
of change. That is
Absolutely
the
right.
power of change. Okay. And let me just also say this, that the reason why we have done this partnership with Amity University, we have brought it up after a very long time, Augustine. After Augustine's time, I think we have restarted it, is in the hope that we will ignite the minds and hearts of these young communicators. We bring passion and compassion into their minds, so that when you look at a child, when you look at their stories, you should be able to think, what can you do with that? How can I bring that issue up to the forefront? And how can I address that individual issue through a story? Because nothing is better than actually the story. I mean, you have seen so many presentations, but my 3 minutes film has actually
said much more.
Over from my side.
But
Over.
also what you said, it's a very very serious direction to what ASCO can do. You spoke about the children going out and shooting on mobiles. What you actually spoke about is mobile journalism, or what we call mojos. And so this is something which ASCO can take up, training young children, young girls in remote area to be trained to be good mobile journalists. And then what the role of ASCO is not only in training them, but also in curating them. Once they send it, some stories would be good, some may not be that good, some may not be good, and disseminate, select them and disseminating them. It would be a fantastic mission. Maybe we could together work on it, I don't know. But this mojo is a big, big direction that
yes,
intervention that you mentioned as such, because basically it is speaking to the power through the very voice of the children.
Absolutely.
To which they cannot say no. Correct. I mean, you and I can say, and they say, oh, you are all well-paid international servants, you can say anything you want. But when a child says this, they would think twice before they say no. So I think that is think is a big direction of this follow-up that
right. And since this is the first, this was really the first webinar in the series, I thought it was important for me to put upfront, what I am really hoping from Amity and from these partnerships. We have also got a partnership with Lucknow University. We are looking at other partnerships with other universities. We have an absolutely brilliant platform which we are doing a partnership with Amar Ujala. It's called Zindagi Masterclass.
I heard about it.
Yes,
I heard about it.
I am so glad. So where we get national level experts to talk with youth, and I would absolutely urge all students at Amity to log in and ask questions from national level experts, on issues, on COVID, on career options. I mean, we've had everything. So we are in the middle of the third series, third season now. And Sangeeta, I had actually invited Sangeeta Anand here just because she is coordinating that for us. And it would be amazing actually to get the youth to participate and look at it. So we had an absolutely brilliant series starting on mental health, because I see a lot of questions here which are on mental health.
Yes.
We had psychologists from Fortis, from BHU addressing issues. We had a wonderful session on sexual harassment, which is also a very big reality during COVID times, right? We had a session on COVID vaccination for youth and answering the questions on what is happening to that. And the next session that we have planned is actually, healthy living. So nutrition, how to maintain your balance of mind and all the rest of it. So we would definitely encourage everybody to participate in that. Ruth, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I'm just, my attention was caught by the presentation of Ogi, and it's in line with opportunities for partnership and maybe areas of collaboration that the students of communication or journalism can focus on. And one area, Ogi, that you mentioned is about curating. And it's really the curating of content. And that's one area that I thought, as a development organization or as UNICEF, we haven't really looked into that as part of a partnership or collaboration. But it's really the students themselves taking leadership and ownership, one in terms of curation. The other point that I'd like to raise, which is not often discussed in our traditional way of programming, is the area of entrepreneurship, which Ogi mentioned. And I like the idea of, I thought this happens also in Amazon when you comment on a particular topic and you place it, you position it. That's an area that's really interesting. It's really, for me, it's entrepreneurship in communication, because it's not just that you disseminate, but you curate. And you need also to be entrepreneur, because as a student, if I'm the student, I need to think also, what's the added value of my engagement in this kind of endeavor? Over.
Absolutely. And Ruth, as a part of the partnership, what we have asked Professor Jori to, to request the students is to curate content. So the podcasts that are there, so their opinions, their stories, the videos that they will come up with. And I would encourage each student to actually have their own portfolio, right?
Yeah.
And to then share the portfolio and share the learning that you've had, technical as well as, humane learning. And that's what I would.
Just one last. In fact, when I was listening to the podcast presentation, I was asking myself, is it possible to have, a popular way of podcast, say, in the village of, say, Lakhimpur-Kheri, prepared, facilitated by communication graduates or students, but really getting the views of people, getting, the indigenous knowledge. And I thought that is really, and I said, what is the Hindi word for podcast? And, I was just imagining, and I thought maybe podcast can be reimagined in the context of the communities and villages of India, in particular for UP at this point. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, thank you, Ogi, for your presentation. Yes.
Correct. And as a matter of fact, Hindustan Levers had started what they call Kan Khajuratation. I wonder if you've all heard of it. It is, so Kan Khajuratation. So that was actually the caterpillar. So the podcast, Ruth, was actually they coined a term, Kan Khajura. Kan Khajura is that little, caterpillar that goes into your ears. Right. So because it's the sound that goes into your ears. So it's called Kan Khajuratation. So I encourage all of you to Google it and check it out. So I think we will not disrupt the program anymore. Over to you, Sanjana. So take over. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gitali ma'am, for sharing the movie with us. It was very moving and very, very beautiful. And thank you so much, Augustine sir. And I speak on behalf of everyone because I can see the reactions and all the messages on the chat box. So I am speaking on behalf of everyone that the presentation was very motivating, and it was very new and inspirational. And I'm sure a lot of students who are listening to us would be willing to get in touch with you for more mantras soon. And thank you, Ruth ma'am, for your remark about the curating content, the significance of curating content and adding value to it. Thank you so much.
I have sent on WhatsApp to Dr. Sanjay Jori, 3 documents which are additional to what I spoke. three UNICEF documents.
I will pass it on. I will
you should just share it with everybody. It will be substantial reading. It would be in-depth reading, and one is about James Grant, who built us up. He doubled the countries that we worked in. He tripled the staff number, and he quadrupled our budget. So how did this man do it at that time? So, and every one of his colleagues is saying how he did it. So that's a very interesting document. And then there is a big youth movement going on called Generations Unlimited. And then UNICEF has a big, for its associates, it has a big knowledge package, which you only need to access it and read it. So GAN is there. You don't need to wait for it. It is there. So you just take it. So that's why I'm sending it to you all. Just Jori sir will send it to everybody.
I will send it across to the participants. Yes, Sanjay, may I carry on with the questions now?
We will now take questions from the audience. We have received many questions. Bhargavi Singh is asking Dr. Dangwal that mental health has gained a lot of eyeballs since the pandemic began. But the reality is that many people in the society still do not understand what the importance of mental health is. So what steps should be taken both on the individual level and on the society level to increase knowledge about keeping the mental health sane and sound?
Wonderful question, whoever has asked that, because the best answer is with you. As communicators, like Itali ma'am said, you are in that power and that position to communicate to people its importance. And yes, there will always be people who would be aware and not aware. That is the reality. And it is for us to make people more aware of the mental health, its impact, and the issues that people are facing, and how and why they need to come out and talk and share about it. So that the stories that you tell are going to be awareness stories too. All right, they reach out to many, you're able to communicate to many at that one level through your media, through your podcast, through all that you all do, even through your media club that you have at the university level. That is your way of creating that awareness. This platform too is creating awareness amongst you, amongst us, all of us. So you as communicators need to become yourself self-aware of that. Read a lot of literature. You have got experts who are there at your university itself. You have a cell which are there. Why not take information from them, and through your projects, through your social awareness programs, through your community outreach programs, do that. See, out here, we are just talking at our level, all right? But there is a world beyond us, which is there, which is not so privileged as us. And I see in the chat box, there are not many queries and concerns which are there about the starting of class, about being online classes. Well, let's be grateful that at least we are able to do that and stay connected with the world. Out here, you've got these wonderful panelists who are there, and you are interacting with them, all right? So that is also part of your online sessions which you are having. Definitely, it takes a toll on your physical health. Eye strain is there, mental fatigue is there. But if we can do something, there is a flexibility which the online portal also gives you. So if you're able to make use of that flexibility, nothing like it. Like the VC ma'am said the other day, be hard workers, but smart workers too. So you are not avoiding things, but you do your work smartly. And you will see that with your online presence, there is immense flexibility. You just have to roll that out. You have to make your faculty believe in that and do. We are not here to take online classes, all right? For all those who have mentioned the classes, there are alternative ways. Discuss them. There's a huge possibility. do. Maybe we are not doing that. Yes, Augustine.
I want to add something to Dr. Pragyan. She said such a beautiful thing. Only thing I want to take it a little further. See, the point is, when you are in a university or two departments, behavior sciences is one department, communication is another department, and we usually get into those silos. But when you get into something like this, responding to children in distress, responding to children in distress, I think it is good for the community to know that the ASCO, the communication section, is behavior sciences attached, which actually means is some of you should have an eye on what's happening and give your guidance, give your inputs, give your this thing. You say, and somewhere along you should step in and say, I think that needs some intervention. So let's do it. So I think that consciousness need to come. That when you are communicating to ASCO, we are also, there is a powerhouse next to it, which might look into the depths of your psychology and might suggest some solutions, might suggest some new ways of doing things. And so, that is something which you have to work it out, because it's a science, it's a science-based, process-based thing. It can't be lightly taken. But think about it, that you have that kind of a official, mutually agreed collaboration, and which is visible to everybody. So that is something which I wish your department and ASCO will sit together and decide. Ruth said about curating, but curating also by you. See, there is a psychological dimension there. Do you see that? You need to ask that to people.
And our students have great opportunities with them. They have all these kinds of projects they have. And now you have the power of UNICEF also with you. So make the best use of it. So I guess this is a collaboration which would work, which should work magic for you.
That three-way collaboration, your two departments and UNICEF, it will be a trendsetter in the world if it comes through. I mean, all of three of you have to sit together and see. It will be a model for the world. A university with two departments, one looks at communication per se, one looks at behavioral sciences, behavioral changes in a way, and they together look at a complex issue like this, which has many, many dimensions, which has many, again, going back to Hanumanji, there is a lot of Sangat Mojan required. You need to wipe that pain away. You need to liberate that pain away. I did not use the word Sangat Mojan as a joke. I'm very serious about that word. That's something very, very serious, because lots of children, I don't know what they go to bed with, what pain they have, how much suffering they have. I don't know. I mean, the COVID has been, and the trouble with COVID, and my family has been one of the worst sufferers. The trouble with COVID is the one who suffers in alone. Your family is nowhere there. You can't, I didn't talk to my wife for 45 days, and she was in deep pain. I mean, I know if I could talk to her, I could sit next to her, it would have been a different story, because we had such a bond, but that was gone. So, this is something which, very unique to to humanity's experience. If you are a relation of a patient, you can't even enter the hospital complex. Forget the ward. वो गेट पे रोक लेते थे आपको, बोले थे तुम बुला लेते. Give things over the. That's what they did to us. So, this is something which, and most of us, it's not only the poorest of the poor, people who have seen their spouses wither away with no support, no consolation, no nothing. So I think we need to, this is a very, very deeply serious issue. But in this, it needs collaboration. It needs the psychology on one side, the communication, the expression on side, and the depth of UNICEF on one side. Of all the news that comes from Afghanistan, all the news that comes from Afghanistan, there's only one positive piece I have seen. That is an Al Jazeera interview of the UNICEF operations officer. And you know what he says? We are here to stay, and we are here to deliver, and we have friends on both sides.
Correct.
What more could he say? So this must be our pattern. We are here to stay, and we are here to deliver, and we have friends on both sides. This is something which is, that's the only positive thing so far we've heard from us that came from UNICEF. That's why I'm so proud of UNICEF. I left 10 years ago, but I still feel that is my religion. That is where, so that is why, it's so important that we stick to that spirit. That's why I wanted you to read all the UNICEF classics. I have sent you that.
I would definitely encourage all the students to go to the UNICEF sites and look at the stories and the kind of work that is being done. And we understand that currently I see a lot of things in the chat box as to how can we get older people to talk about mental health. How can we help? And I honestly tell you, I have figured that the journalists in a pandemic, they're the most powerful voice. When this pandemic was starting last year in March, when we had no idea what's going to be happening, we started off with an editors meet on 16th of March. That was the last face-to-face meeting that we had. All the editors, we got them. We got WHO, UNICEF, and the government. We briefed all the editors that this is what's going to hit us. And these are the messages that we want you to communicate. And in that time, because, by the time you get communication campaigns ready and all the rest of it, it takes a long time. But the very next day, all the journalists, they did the research and they came up with preventive features. How does it transmit? How does it go? What should we be avoiding? What are going to be the long-term repercussions? And I think UP was, probably one of the first states to have that extensive kind of coverage on the pandemic right in the beginning. And, we did quite well in the first wave. Though, of course, in the second wave, the Delta swept everybody, like it has swept the world. But that is really the power of the word. It is a power and it is an obligation that each one of you who is venturing into this profession, it's the commitment that you have to make. You make a commitment to the issue, make a commitment to understand, make a commitment to improve your skills. All right. See what are the trends happening. Behavioral sciences, Augustine is absolutely right. Okay. What are the behavioral sciences that are happening? What are the media technology? What are the trends that are happening? Okay. Today, you have the power of the word on a mobile phone. Use that power. Use that power. And and you are limited only by your imagination. So dream big, think big, be an entrepreneur, like Augustine says, and you will absolutely overcome not just this pandemic. You will help a lot of people. You will gain a lot of satisfaction, and you will grow as an individual. You will contribute to society, and that's really, I think, I don't know, I'm just making a passionate appeal to all of you to do this, because yeah.
I have one request. I have one request to Gitali and Salman, and that is this. I saw that you're doing it with many universities, including Amity. I saw that you're doing with Amar Ujala. I would also say do it with the Urdu media.
We'll be doing that.
I'm sure you will be doing it. But it's very important that we get to that side of the story, because they have much to tell us.
Yes,
which we don't hear.
No, that we are doing. We are making sure that it's being done, Augustine. All right, so I think I will get off this thing.
I just want to take a question, not a question. In fact, it is a feeling of both expectation and the desperation that Dr. Kamashi Singh expressed, and I want to refer to that. Kamashi, you referred to the perennial pain that we have gone through in our lives. Whenever, whether it was polio, whether it was HIV, people just don't do what is the obvious. You can keep struggling. We have to work around. Today is not the right day. Someday I will tell you the story of the 100th commandment. We have no option but to keep repeating until everybody comes around. I don't know when they will, but that is the process. We don't know where people get all those discouragements, where people are told not to do this, not to do that, and sometimes it may not be anything like that. It may be something else. We don't know what it is until we, that is why for us during polio, having those community mobilizers was so important, because they dug inside the community and they came out with what is really threatening them. It is not the science, it is not the lack of interest. It was sometimes something totally different. In Kamashi, if we ever have come together anywhere, you ask me, I have 2 stories to tell you. But today is not that day because we are in a session on, how it was thrown at me with such vehemence, that why somebody refused polio. And then she turned around and asked, when did I refuse? So and that question changed everything. When did she refuse? So anyway, so that's a different, that's an important story, but we'll say it another.
I just wanted to add something here. So when we're talking about content curation, we are looking at issues and problems, and we are highlighting the problems of the children, those who have lost, who don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, or talking about the suffering. I think it's also important to document positive stories of hope, because when you start to make stories of children who have been helped and their lives now improving or the change, I think it creates a sense of hope. And those stories are also very important for comm students to start to look for, and sort of even if you're doing follow-up stories. So if you've identified children and the child, and if you just follow one child through the entire process, and if you're able to do a follow-up story, I think that too is quite important to keep that story of hope, in the minds of people who read your work, and also in terms of when you prepare content, also to have a plan of how you would share it. Something like not just dissemination, but who would be the right audience, and how would you share it to a different audience segments, or if you're doing it for the UNICEF, then who would be there likely to be their audiences. And so therefore try and get the kind of information that could take the story to a much higher level, up to legislators, or even to the to other international organizations who can help the child in different ways. So I think these things we just need to keep in mind and look for positive stories as well.
It's difficult to stay positive all times, but then you have to make that effort, and if you will try, it comes with practice, no doubt about it.
Thank you so much, Dangwal ma'am, Augustine sir, Geetali ma'am. Everyone weighed in on the topic, and I'm sure the queries are being answered. There are a lot of questions. So because we are running short on time, we'll take a few more questions. So this one question is for Augustine sir, that there has been a change in the learning and education scenario. So this has caused a gap between the advantaged and disadvantaged students, as in there is wide range of problem. Somebody is having trouble in finding a room where privacy is there, so that he or she can attend the classes without any interference. And on the other hand, there are students, or rather children, who are not having the bare minimum technological equipment and other facilities to get into touch with the education institutions, or get education, to be more precise. So how wide is the gap between the advantaged and disadvantaged children, and how can we make sure that it does not go further away, that these people don't go further away? So this question was from Sonia Singh. So sir, would you like to answer this question?
Sonia Singh, I don't know if anybody responsible in the government is listening to me, but to me that the solution to that problem is very simple. The solution to that problem is, you're waiting for every child to have a device. Don't do that. That will take a long time. What you need is a digital leader in every gram panchayat and a digital hut, which is properly connected and enough devices there. So any child can walk in, attend classes, ask questions, and go back. So this is what we should develop. That will give a lot jobs to a lot of people who are good at it. Even in every Gram Sabha at one or doing it. It will bring solution close to home. It will not leave them with I'm from Kerala, so I'll think of, it will not make like the dog getting a whole coconut, and then don't know what to do with it. But so the child should be able to act, just be technology friendly. So it's that kind of a digital friendship that's required, digital network that is required, and this should happen to every gram panchayat, every slum. One house, two houses dedicated only to digital empowerment, and one digital master, fully trained, fully connected. And that person should be backed up from lots of us. If he doesn't know the answer, he should be able to answer. So this, to me, Sonia, is the solution, but people won't do that. People will immediately promise everybody a laptop and everybody a mobile and everybody and all that, because that sounds very good. But what I have seen is, where children have done well is, where there is a trustworthy bhaiya or didi, जो हमें guide किया. Most people, children will tell you, यूपी के बच्चे भाई कहेंगे, एक भैया था या एक दीदी, वो हमें मदद किया है, हमें गाइड किया है, हमें इंस्पायर किया है. So it is very important to find that bhaiya or didi, so that bhaiya and didi should be well connected, well positioned. This would be my solution, but I don't think anybody else is considering this. But since you asked me, I'm.
Thank you, sir, for answering the question. It was actually from Vaishali Gautam, my mistake, but thank you for answering this question.
Thank you, Vaishali.
My next question is by Drishti Vinayak, and she wants to ask Sangeeta ma'am that with pay cuts and loss of jobs, many families' financial conditions have declined while the inflation seems ever increasing. How can international and national organizations contribute to establish a balance?
Very interesting question, and I think we have UNICEF here as one of the international organizations. But I think the thing is also to do with the government and how the state government responds, and how the collaboration with the national and international organizations are developed to support the education as well as the employment sector. So I think there are a lot of opportunities, but I don't believe that we are there yet. I think the government are still trying to manage the health situation and look at the medical needs, and they haven't really thought about this as much as we are thinking and deliberating, I suppose. And there is opportunity in terms of working together, providing for probably a collaboration in such a way that the government and the private sector put funds together to build the economy and create job opportunities. I think some states are doing it in a certain way. I know in Tamil Nadu that there's been lots of investment from the government and in the opening out the economy to invite investors inside, outside investors. And I think the southern states, even Telangana, has been trying to do that for its youth to provide employment. Because I think once you are able to provide employment and provide a stable financial status for the individuals, then the rest of the things fall in place automatically. And I think that is one effort. I'm not sure how UP is doing it. Yeah, Augustine.
I thought that. You finish.
No,
I was not interrupting
you have
you.
something to add to UP, because I'm not sure about the UP settings, but it is happening in certain states that efforts are ongoing to invite investors into the thing, because many international companies left. At the moment COVID struck in India and the Delta variant hit, many companies left, and especially the automobile industry, the IT industry, everybody shut down quite a bit. So in that sense, I think now is the time to move to second tier, two tier cities, and now there's lots of invitations for the private sector to invest. And I think there's collaboration also with international organizations. I think the World Bank has funded a couple of efforts, and there's also some other efforts provided by the United Nations set up like for agriculture, etc.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Sanjana, can I speak?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay. Sanjana, actually, I put my hand up not to ask a question or to answer a question. I noticed that there is a very distinguished friend and a public health person in the audience. This is Dr. K.R. Anthony. He was once upon a time the health specialist of UNICEF in UP. And while he was health specialist, he is the one who created the SMNet, the social mobilization net, for polio, which is the one which did the wonders. So what he is reminding us in the thing is that from 1998, you have been saying Akiri push, but it came much later. But there is no limit. We need to be doing it, and we don't know because we can't fool the virus. We can't say, we've done a big campaign, virus will go away. No, virus will come back. So this is what Dr. Anthony is trying to tell us, and I think that's a very major lesson. And so we need infinite patience, we need infinite effort, we need every one of us together. So that's what he's trying to say. And Anthony then from here, he moved to Hyderabad, from there to Raipur, where we ran a huge government program. Now, of course, like me, he's retired, and he's a major figure in public health. So thanks for Anthony. You took so much time to be part of ASCO, part of Lucknow UNICEF. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing the hope to us, because there is still a lot of scope within the four walls in which we are residing. There is still a lot of scope that we have to realize, and we have to make the best out of it. Thank you, sir.
This is my question, and I would like to ask Dangwal ma'am that after this certain period of time of pandemic, there is certain numbness that has entered every one of us after seeing crisis, loss, and isolation in one phase or the other since 2020. So how should one cope with this numbness that has prevailed on all of us, and that now nothing shooks us, or nothing like a death in a family, or even a friend who is going through certain loss doesn't shake us in one way or the other like it was earlier? So how should we cope with this numbness?
And you are muted. You are muted.
Ma'am, you are muted.
You are muted.
Yes, so
Yeah.
sorry. Well, yes, that is another kind of fatigue. And the numbness is because, we have become so desensitized towards so much which has happened within such a short period of time. All right. And that is why, if you say that, how do we come out of it? The only way is to just get up and go about doing your work. Because what the pandemic, we have to see yet with the pandemic in future also, we do not know. All right. So we cannot hide from, we cannot negate, we cannot run away from what has happened. But at the most, we need to realize that, yes, this is something which has happened and we cannot do anything about it. We cannot turn the time back. Or we cannot tell the virus that, like Sir said right now, that why did you do this, or don't do this, this shouldn't happen, that's the end. So we do not know actually what is ahead for us. So when I talked about positivity, positivity does not mean that you do not look at the negative side. It means that you realize and acknowledge that yes, there is negativity, but then we need to pick up what is working from us right now and move ahead with that. Because when we look at the past, when we look at all the negativity, when we look at all the numbness, then we will not be able to move ahead. All right. So shake yourself mentally, physically, or with the things and the activities that you feel that you can do, which can reignite the kind of energy or the passion level in you, and go ahead and do them. That is the best right now, that what I can tell you. So for those who have faced losses, you cannot say forget it, forget them. That will never be forgotten. All right, that is a scar which is there, but along with that scar also, we still can live and look beautiful, feel beautiful. And that is what we need to remind ourselves, that life still is beautiful as long as we are living. And for me, it is beautiful. I'm beautiful and others too are beautiful. So life is beautiful.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
you.
I'm sorry, I'm coming in again and again, but this time I come in because this numbness is something that I've gone through. This is my most traumatic experience of my life. I've gone through with, so maybe my experience is relevant here. The first thing that happened to me was my mother died. In 20 days, my wife died. So I mentioned this in the social media. In 20 days, the two most important women in my life are gone. So I get a reply from Archana Datta, who was the former Director General of Doordarshan. She says, August, in 4 hours, I lost my mother and my husband, in 4 hours. So whom has the pandemic treated badly? We don't know, because it has treated me badly. Then I got a call from Malika Mitra, who is from Lucknow, who is a nutrition expert. So Malika tells me, Augustine, condolences, I believe. I heard about Grace. So I said, thank you very much. How are you? She said, I lost my husband on 16th and I lost my wife on 17th. So who is consoling whom? So this has been the story day after day after day after. Friends that I have known in immense pain. I don't know how many of us will survive this, how much of this will be, but we are trying to hold on. And lots of friends are helping us. And in a sense, the biggest support came from, not support, the biggest, let's say, job description. It came from my daughter-in-law. She used to live in Gandhinagar at that time. Within 2 hours after Grace passing away, my daughter-in-law called me. He said, Dad, now you have to be dad and mom together. So you have to be healthier. You have to live longer because you have 2 grandchildren. They are twins. They both need you. So to me that struck me. Okay, I have a mission. It's I have kept my door closed. At least both of them have been here and playing on my keyboard. So there is no. I don't know if there is a psychological answer. I'm not looking for one. I'm only looking for strength, from my friends, and my friends who have gone through the same, and I'm trying to give them that strength. That numbness is so real. And in fact, even when Sanjay called me, my first response was, I didn't know it was about a function or anything. My first response was, Sanjay, I was waiting to hear your voice. Because Sanjay, as a journalist, as a professional, I have a lot of respect for him. Not because he's ASCO director, because he's a scientist who turned to become a journalist. So my first briefings as a UNICEF officer, he was first listening to as a scientist and then was writing it as a writer. No, that is an enormous difference in that. And I like Sanjay for that he was a scientist trying to write. So, that is a very, very special relationship I have with him. And a very affectionate kind of relationship. So when he called me, he said, I was just waiting to hear your voice without knowing that he had called me to invite me. And then, of course, a lot of friends don't know what to tell me when they call me. So they don't call. A lot of calls I don't see, so I don't take them. But that call is important. That conversation is important. And, so don't refuse to call somebody because you don't know them. Because they don't want, because you don't know, not as that person know what you should tell them. But the fact you called is important. That your voice is there is important. The fact you said, I care, that is important. The fact that you said, you are in my mind and your suffering is in my mind, that's very important. So if you know of somebody, don't refuse to call. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel, I don't know what to say. Call and say, I don't know what to say, but I want to call you anyway. Listen to me, hear me, and I want to hear you. Maybe we will not talk. Maybe we'll only talk for 2 minutes. But that's very, very important. So I want all of you to say that I don't know if there is a scientific, psychological solution for it. I am not looking for it. But I'm living through it. This is the 107th day. I count every day. And it doesn't go away. It is not that, a few days later it will go away. My wife has vanished from my memory. No, we lived 43 years together. We were such friends. So how can it go away? I have to be talking to her every day. I have to be seeing her every day. And in this house, there is nothing that she has not influenced. Every paper, every piece of furniture, everything is, there is a touch of her in it. So those things won't go away. They are there, right there in front of me. So please, has gone through it, just call them and say, my friend, I know it is not easy.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sharing this. So it's, it is okay to feel this way because these are your feelings and they are very private for you and there's nothing wrong in it. The time is such that everything is okay. So don't feel bad, guilty, dejected about how you're feeling right now. And whenever you need to share it with others.
And I must tell you, in Lucknow, there are voices I have not heard. So when they call me, I'm going to tell them that. I had expected you to call me. Not because you will do anything to me, not because I need anything from you, but it was important that you said that you cared. It was important that you remember. And that pain is immense. You cannot solve my pain, and which even I cannot solve it. That will linger on. That will go on. So that's it's tough. It's very tough, but it is possible. It is possible to outlive it. And as you outlive it, you grow bigger. That the pain becomes smaller. The pain won't go away. So the pain will be there as long as I live. It will be there. I will not, when I'm 99, I will not say, oh, Grace, I have forgotten you died 20 years ago. No, I won't be able to say that to them. So that's how it is. But then, on the social media, I have about 5-6 friends who have gone through exactly that. And we communicate to each other. And that is painful, but at the same time, that is so consoling because their experience is very similar to mine and very different from mine. So you will see me, every third, fourth day, I find a new picture of Grace and I put it on Facebook. And because not to get likes or comments, but I want to see her. Because she was there with me at Munnar, she was there with me in front of the. Sangeeta will remember. Kerala has these chapels or what we call kapelas. These are these huge, not huge. There are these structures which are shrines of gods. And my wife had this nice habit of, from the moment we get into the car till we reach the airport, she would count everyone on both sides of the road. And that's how she traveled from my house, which is about 100 kilometers from the airport to the airport. She used to count each time, how many she saw. But that was her style of praying. And that was her unique style of praying, which no one else has done. So how can I forget that? So I'm sorry I took long on this one, but it was important to remember.
Thank you so much, sir.
And I'm glad you brought it up.
Thank you so much. We have really heard things that we really needed to hear for a long time, since a long time. And
no, I have also spoken and pontificated about every relationship will end. It will end with somebody's death. It will end with somebody going away. That's all good theory. But when suddenly somebody goes away, you don't know what to do.
Yes, the pain is very real, and I think that whatever we say, that there is some solidarity in pain, that what we all are sharing in one way or the other. We are short of time, so we need to wrap up the session.
Thank you so much.
I'm so sorry, I have to interrupt you in between.
No, not at all. You haven't. I finished myself.
Okay. Thank you so much, our panelists, for answering the queries of students and helping them understand the different dimensions of the impact of COVID-19 on youngsters. The learning from this panel discussion has been very fruitful to all of us. I would now request Dr. Arina Mirza to deliver the vote of thanks to our honorable panelists.
A very good evening to one and all present here. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of Amity School of Communication, Lucknow. First of all, I'm short of words to express my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Ruth Liano, Chief of Field Office, UNICEF Uttar Pradesh, who, despite her very busy schedule, found time to grace this occasion and bless our students. Her address set the tone of this panel discussion. Thank you, ma'am, for your address and your blessings. I wish to offer my unconditional gratitude to Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor Sunil Dhaneshwar, sir, for his guidance and encouragement always. Thank you, sir, for your valuable inputs and for your compassionate concern for students. Now, I would like to extend a very special thank you to each of our esteemed panelists, Mr. Augustine Veliath, Ms. Sangeeta Rajesh, and Dr. Pragyan Dangwal, for taking out their valuable time and sharing their deep insights with our students, and in the process, making this panel discussion lively, thought-provoking, very insightful and interesting. Their fitting responses to queries raised by the students further enliven the session. I'm sure the participants would have hugely benefited from the interactions and now have a better understanding and take with them newer insights on issues raised during the course of panel discussion. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend my most sincere thanks to Ms. Gitali Trivedi, Communication Specialist, UNICEF Lucknow, for gracing the occasion with her presence and by her valuable inputs for sensitizing our students. Thank you, ma'am. I also thank Ms. Sangeeta Anand and Mr. Salman from UNICEF for their gracious presence. I would like to thank our head of the institution, Professor Dr. Sanjay Mohan Jori, sir, for his constant guidance and encouragement at every step, and for his vision and unstinted support to ensure the success of this event. We are indeed privileged to host this session and thank each one of you from the bottom of our hearts for making it a resounding success. I thank all the students for their participation and the well-articulated questions which made this panel discussion more meaningful and enriching. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the IT department of Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, for rendering us all possible technical support towards organizing this event. Last but not the least, I would like to thank the coordination committee members, Mr. Saumin Bhattacharya, Ms. Arpita Singh, Ms. Sonia Singh, and our students team for their valuable contribution. Thank you, everyone.